and getting childcare, whatever that looks like, having older siblings watch kids. My goal today, there are 3 main points, just that you could walk away knowing like what is executive functioning. If you're walking in and you're like, I've heard that term a bunch, but I don't know what it means, or yeah, I've watched some reels about it, or somebody posted about it, or you've done a deep dive because your student has needed some support in executive functioning, I'm glad you're here. And I hope that you can walk away with a deeper understanding and also really concrete ways to help support your child. Also, what do these skills look like in you? So we are going to do an adult executive function questionnaire. So you need to know for yourself what this looks like before you can teach your child. If you're trying to help them with math homework, hopefully you know how to do the fractions before you're trying to help them with the fractions. So hopefully you can walk away today knowing what executive functioning looks like in your life and what it builds up to as an adult, so you can start to scaffold along the way. And then how can parents and teachers partner together? Just we're grateful for the partnership. I love working here and working with older students and getting to know parents of students who are going to come into the summit. So this is a real treat. If I don't know you, I'd love to meet you and chat afterwards. But that's also the goal at the end, to give you some questions or thoughts on how can you take some of this knowledge and really partner with your child's teacher this year, if this is a struggle for them, or if it's not a struggle, just something they could continue to grow in. So before we really dive into what executive functioning is, I think the history is really interesting. It kind of felt like it came out of nowhere that all of a sudden this became super popular, but there's been a real build. So starting in the early 1900s, researchers were studying brain injuries, and they started realizing that a lot of people with brain injuries to their frontal lobe were lacking a lot of the skills that later became named executive functioning skills. And a lot of those are tied to response inhibition, many of the things that we'll talk about later. So they're starting to realize a connection between a certain part of the brain and when it's injured, and then how adults function later. That shifts later and gets finally called executive functioning. And then researchers are like, wait, this is not a part of the brain that's only injured, it's also a part of the brain that's developed when you're a child. And that was the real connection of, then we should be studying this in kids. How and when are these skills developed? How can we help them develop? And then in the 2000s, it really became, to present, mainstream. There was a big boom in popularity, especially with the shift to social emotional learning, which is SEL, skills in schools. That's a big push, I hope, in all schools, but especially here at Central, that we're not just teaching academics, but we're teaching whole humans, holistically, their hearts, their minds, and we want them to enter society being able to function well, not just do certain academic skills. So that's a little background. The next little snippet is a video that explains super well what executive functioning is, and then we will talk more about each specific skill. And in short, this will tell you, which I thought was a really helpful way to remember, executive functioning is really your brain's air traffic control system. So maybe you can walk away with that one phrase, that one image, but we will learn from some people with British accents for a little bit about executive functioning.
Sharing toys, waiting turns, remembering to say please with an inside voice. Children have a lot of demands on their attention. Managing these demands takes work and a lot of practice and support. Think of a child's brain as a busy airport. Different planes take off, fly past and land, all at the same time. They're competing for the attention of the air traffic controller, who has to prioritize, plan ahead and keep track of where each plane needs to go, and work hard to keep everything on course. When a child tries to manage their planes, they're using a set of skills called executive function. Executive function is built in our brains over time, starting in our earliest months and continuing in adolescence.
Executive function skills are not something that babies are born with. Instead, they develop actively over time from infancy to early adulthood and require quite a lot of practice and support. So executive function skills include the ability to follow complicated instructions, to focus your attention, to plan ahead, respond to change and control impulses. In a way, I think it's all the things that kind of make us focus and do something in a coordinated way. And so many areas of our brain work together to contribute to our executive functioning. So these skills are crucial for learning and development and help us make healthy choices in our lives.
When these skills are well practiced and well developed, it's easier to manage the air traffic in our lives. It's easier for children to focus, listen, and adapt to change, and to manage behavior when demands on attention build up. When our executive function is still developing, or is disrupted by abuse or neglect, our air traffic is harder to control. We can't manage as many planes, and it's harder to keep everything on course. Children can become overwhelmed, anxious or frustrated, shown in behaviors like forgetfulness, lashing out, or withdrawing. Building our executive function takes practice and support throughout our lives, and it's never too early or too late to keep building these skills.
Executive function skills are built and learned over time, so there are always opportunities to develop and practice these skills throughout childhood. We know that overwhelming stress and pressure do not help build these skills. They're actually in nurturing, supportive environments, and it's much easier to learn these skills in the context of supportive and attentive relationships. So providing developmentally appropriate opportunities for children and young people can help build their executive functioning skills. Adults can do this by providing scaffolding around new tasks, which support children to practice and strengthen their skills before trying them out with increasing independence. So with young children, this could be, for example, turn-taking in games or activities that involve following simple sets of instructions that then can be made more complicated as time progresses. So for adolescents, this is helping them choose and set goals and make a plan together about how these can be achieved.
Calm environments, a stable routine, and lots of practice, play, and encouragement all help strengthen our executive function and help children to control the air traffic in their lives. With practice and the right support, children of every age can learn the skills they need to thrive.
Okay. So that's an overview of these skills. Let's go to the next slide. And a lot of what I'm going to be referencing today comes from both, and there was a little blurb at the bottom of that. Harvard has done a lot of research on executive functioning skills and has a great website, great blog posts, and at the end I'll have a page if you're interested of resources, if you want to learn more, if you want to listen to podcasts. There's so much out there. But also this book by Peg Dawson and Richard Guare, or Smart But Scattered. If you've heard of it or familiar with it, it's a wonderful tool on executive functioning. And if you've not heard of it, here it is. I feel like it's almost like, one of the OG, like it came out and it was very important for teachers, parents, families. There's also like Smart But Scattered for teens. So it's been adapted over time as its popularity has increased. And this is a breakdown kind of the main subset of skills within executive functioning. So we'll go kind of from the top row down, but response inhibition is a big piece of executive functioning. And you'll notice a lot of these things, it's not just like school skills, it's also behavioral, which are school skills, and life skills. So response inhibition, thinking before acting, emotional control, managing your feelings, task initiation, getting started, goal-directed persistence, sustained attention, planning and prioritizing, which also kind of ties into the organization piece. I think sometimes that's the first piece that brings parents into the conversation of executive functioning, is maybe the organization piece is sometimes the most obvious of backpack's a mess, or can't find something, or left it at home, or didn't turn their work in again on time, and that could be what brings you into the conversation. There are other pieces too, time management, valuing and using time, which we'll talk a little later about a resource too for building a sense of time in kids. But I think that's actually really crucial for executive functioning skills, because time is so abstract and just out there and happening. And when we're not always looking at clocks like this anymore and always on our phones, it also feels different now, I think, than it used to. So time, flexibility, adapting to new situations, and metacognition, which is like thinking about your own thinking. So can your child kind of zoom out? All of this is tied into executive functioning. So it's a huge topic, and we're not going to be able to talk about everything in depth. but this is the overview. And now what I want to do is also talk about where these take us, where do these skills take our kids, and where do they help us in adult life. So I just wanted to put out some markers of executive functioning skills that were provided by Peg Dawson. They've kind of made a checklist of like the typical executive functioning goal benchmarks by certain ages, and you'll get a copy of that soon. But this really also, I was thinking about our vision and mission and our portrait of a graduate, and all of these things support that when we send kids off, we hope that in middle school they can spend 60 to 90 minutes on homework, that they can make and follow nightly schedules for themselves or with your help, that they could carry out a long-term project that gets given in 8th grade or 7th grade, that they can, once they switch schools, adjust to different teachers, different materials, all the transitions that happen. And then on the more like at home side, I thought this was so interesting. These are part of executive functioning skills too, the flexibility piece, willing to adjust to accept a younger sibling's agenda. That would be nice. Resist saying hurtful things, able to read reactions from friends and adjust behavior. These are all like bigger, as your kids get older, goals of hopefully as we build these foundations here at school and in partnership with you, we can get kids there. For the rest of life, juggling a job and family responsibilities, creating weekly schedules. My kids aren't old enough to be playing sports yet, but like, wow. I don't know if I ever want them to be in terms of when I hear like, well, we had 2 soccer games Saturday and this was Friday night and volleyball practices. It's a lot on the parents, on families. And so somehow there's somebody in your family carrying that and using executive functioning skills to plan that. Task initiation, starting taxes, a house project, an email that's tough. Response inhibition for adults looks maybe like resisting the urge to check your phone during a meeting or conversation. Setting and achieving personal and professional goals. Monitoring your emotions when responding appropriately, especially when heated to anybody in your life. So I just, want to name that these feel really big and almost like, I hope we can all do that. And it takes a lot of work to get there, and even as adults, we're still working on it. But as the video mentioned, the good news is there's always time and space to practice and build these skills. It's not like done, it did or did not develop. So let's take a look now at your own executive functioning skills. This questionnaire comes from Peg Dawson and Richard, who are the authors of Smart But Scattered and have really led a lot of the research in the US at least. You'll see, but the range is 1 to 7. 1 is strongly disagree and 7 is strongly agree. And then you're going to add up your score in certain sections. And if you have a high score in that section, it means that subset of executive functioning skills is a strength for you. Everybody does have strengths. And then your lower sections are your areas of growth. So we will pass these out. Hopefully this is interesting and gives you insight into how you're wired. And then therefore how you're
Was you right, Julie? Where are you at? We're together.
Super passionate about executive functioning. My problem is overfunctioning. That's why I'm in counseling with overfunctioning. So, can't wait to crush this. Yes, totally. Okay, yes, this is the insanity. Gosh.
I think
Because they are like, why doesn't she just, if you just want to do averages, we're all gonna win still. I do actually think they're like, she's like, seriously. You just gave me one, which I love executive functioning, so I was gonna do it for the table.
there's not enough.
No, there's enough. I singled you out.
I was like,
Just to do.
We were waiting for
You were going to be the case sample.
Yeah, case study.
You were
I'm the overfunctioner, so bring it on. I'm the one who needs help from everyone. Yeah. I mean, I'm writing my name on the top. Why?
That's great.
Gee,
I will give you guys about 5 minutes to fill it out, think about it, discuss if you'd like to share.
Oh my God.
2 more minutes if you would like to discuss with friends or spouse that is here strengths, areas of growth, are you surprised? Are you confused? We can talk more about what each executive skill means.
Flexibility and stress tolerance are just what I feel like parents.
Right, that's what I'm like.
No wonder.
So some of them are the highest rated graded. So if I'm graded, I will crush it. If we're not being graded on that, then that's a big waste of time.
See that starting something, initiation and persistence until completion are two. Which makes sense if you're working home or.
What's your highest? Well, I know my highest. Oh, yeah, I'm crushing. The highest I know, this is when I'm graded. Like, I'm graded. Yeah, I'm graded. Like, again. Yeah, well, like, for any job, like, if there's a goal, we're gonna hit it and then blow it out. So I know when it's graded, but then, like, yeah. And then, I'm not gonna procrastinate, I'm not gonna and then so we can test the last minute, but then, like, at home, when it's like my office, I would set the piles, and then I go, like, and then sit there forever. But I also feel like I'm over functional to an extreme. So I'm learning to that these, when they're not graded, are not have a deadline, are not as because they're not when someone else needs it. I'm wanting to give myself a break here. Because otherwise I will self-destruct. But then I also very clearly slow. I don't know if I can speak before I speak, but I'm incredibly fast about it. So it throws me off that I can see the systems that I need to let other people. Otherwise I'm going to I am. Okay. And then, yeah. Wait, I did this one. Wait, no, I'm really great. No, I think this one's really wrong. It's this one. I'm not flexibility terrible. Because I don't know if you set it up or relax and change it. And this one wrong, this one I did. Yeah, definitely. That is such a gift. That is why you're phenomenal at your job. You're there. That is why you are phenomenal. And look at you. I am like WTF. You guys can't get your ass together. And that's why I am like, okay, what else are you doing? Yeah, I'm like, that's it. I can do it and I'm bad. I'm not here. What can I do? Yeah. I think that's awesome. I like kind of statement. So low. Yeah. Like emotional control. Helpful in that spot, right? I don't get a lot of things going on. Yeah. All day long. It sends out the best. then I would have anxiety. Yeah, no, that's very tricky. But you don't maybe have that.
Okay, we're gonna go back together because we have some more ground to cover. Let's talk briefly about the questionnaire. I've heard some feedback. So this is definitely interesting to take as adults because I've had a few conversations that was like, well, some of this is different depending on what sphere of life I'm in, or like who I'm talking to or who I'm engaging with, which I think as we grow older and carry more, like that's just even more the importance of these skills. Not that our kids aren't engaging on different levels with teachers and their siblings and their peers, but then as you enter the workforce and then your like church community and then all these different things that we're carrying, it can be different, and that makes sense. And then I heard like maybe my spouse should take this for me, or we could take it for each other. That would be interesting. The topics on the back, the executive skill of metacognition, that's like thinking about your thinking or reflecting. So I didn't really clarify that one. And working memory, I think the most helpful way, honestly, to describe that is those questions 4 through 6, which is like how much information can you hold in your mind, remembering facts, dates, details, things that you've committed to, seldom need reminders to complete tasks. So those questions will help you think about what falls into this skill of working memory, which is great that is a skill that can continue to be developed. So again, I have later the questionnaire or the checklist for kids by age, because it is super age specific, because like a 5th grader versus a 5-year-old is gonna have different response inhibition markers or organization markers, goals. But hopefully even just seeing this in yourself, you can start to think, like, how do I operate? And then if I'm raising my kids, where are the ways that they might operate similarly or differently and have a strength that I don't or a weakness that I don't? I feel like that's sometimes the tension, or the same weakness as you can be hard as well. So something for you to reflect on. As right before, I'm going to pass out the questionnaire for kids next for you guys to look at and take for your child if you're interested. But just things to remember that executive functioning skills, they impact home life, they impact learning and academic success. These skills are correlated with ADHD, but these difficulties do not equal ADHD. So you could have a child who doesn't have ADHD, ADD, or anything near it, but still struggles with some executive functioning skills. You could have a child with ADHD, and this likely will be a struggle for them. So there's kind of that caveat. I pulled from the questionnaire by age some of the, I thought, most maybe interesting ones by grade level. So you can see pre-K, grades 1 through 2, 3 through 4, 5, and 6. And you can kind of see the progression too, especially in pre-K, and we'll go into this later, but I have been struck in all that I've learned about how much play plays a role in this. That kids learn so much of this through play at like pre-K through kindergarten. And I think that's awesome and such a strength of our pre-K program. Kids learn through play, and they don't just learn like social skills, they're learning executive functioning skills. And as kids get older, they continue to play. So we'll talk about that too. You can read some of these, but pre-K through kindergarten, learning the goal, waiting for turns, using words instead of other means to express frustration, putting toys and clothes in bins with help, and then grades 1 through 2, kind of stepping up. You can keep track of your lunchbox. Maybe you know where your folder is. You can work independently at home for 10 minutes or so. And then grades 3 and 4, that steps up. Even saving money for 3 to 4 weeks at a time, like that goal-directed persistence. This really touches all realms of life, and you can help support your kids in many different ways. It doesn't just have to be like, let's write a goal and write how we're going to get it and track it. It could be saving for something. It could be practicing for a musical instrument, a show that you want to put on, something that you want to learn. So there's lots of ways to get at this. But next I will pass out, it looks very similar. If it was overwhelming for you to take this for yourself and do all the numbers, do not feel like you have to do the numbers right now for your child or children, but if you're interested in doing that, feel free. If you just want to look at it, feel free, but I'll give you about 5 to 7 minutes. the first page is preschool, the second and kindergarten, second page is lower elementary, and then the last page is upper elementary. So this hopefully will also be enlightening as well.
So third is lower, okay. Fourth and sixth. Okay. Yeah, I can do it. I'll help you.
Well, I'm actually realizing how much I'm expecting my 4 and 5 year old, 5 and 6 year old, yeah. And they're probably the biggest that's a 5th grade, now
Dude, I can't do that.
Guys, lower elementary for tonight's purposes is first, second, and third, and upper is fourth through sixth.
So like I would say the ones that are mostly connected, what we will happen in school, something at home. Yeah, like this is
What are you doing? Yeah, I don't think I can do it without.
I should do it.
I also feel at home, like I talk to Zeke, he's not listening to me.
Yeah.
Because he's done listening.
Yeah.
At school, he's pretty obedient.
Yeah,
To listen.
for sure.
You can deal with unfairness without undue upset. You never know. Home's like,
Yeah.
and. Swallow it.
Oh, yeah.
they do it.
Yeah.
Is able, yes, does he do it? No. Cause like, that's half the struggle, right, is figuring out what, like, can you do it, yes, what makes the
Complete more school. Does that mean feeding him with the bigger spoon? So he eats a breakfast to get out the door.
Is this tag dog?
Who is, she has no kids. Those are my favorite. Those are my favorite people that do all this research. The ones who have zero kids. Just kidding.
Good. Thank you. Yes.
they're like your lower brain, your outer brain, and then like executive functioning is all over. Like you can't get there if all of this like lower brain functioning. And so it will really transformative for them. That's why you got like the arc of literally from the near like or that your parents
They're flooding.
Yeah.
and you can't like right. And I even get to this part, you know.
Strange, this is exactly how I imagined her.
Yeah, there you go. She looks a little bit like Halloween. Yeah.
We're just wondering if she's
Oh, Peg.
we're just wondering if she's in, like, we were joking about, she probably doesn't even have kids. Those are my favorite researchers. Those are my favorite researchers. Kids. They don't even have kids. But they're like, here's what you do.
What about this, what's the other, Richard?
Oh, Richard Ware.
Yeah, I had to look up how to say it. It's just like, there's a lot of ways
Yeah.
you could say that.
Richard
Yeah.
Ware.
Rhymes
From
with-
some
I know, I was like, no, it rhymes with where.
Oh, there you go.
Exactly.
I would have thought like
Right, from Pretty Woman to.
We all thought about it, we just didn't say it out loud. Yeah, or murder mystery novelist.
I believe that too. He's from
What about this
Masterpiece.
one?
I don't know, I know that must be really true.
That's for sure.
I am actually so curious now.
Yeah? Let's do that.
Personal life.
I feel like in your office you have pictures of these two paintings.
Actually, I do, I'm gonna be sick for Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
No one will be like, who are you? Hey Dawson, smart with
That's it. No, exactly right.
Yeah, because Peter, yes, brother.
But she won't be good.
So,
Okay, I'm gonna pause you guys
Yeah.
for now. You can like take these home, and if you want to continue thinking about it or looking at the checklist, or if you want to throw it away, that's fine too. I want to name too that in looking at these, like, well, the questionnaire, all the numbers, and just all the different categories, that there could be a range of like discouragement, of like, man, all of these are hard, or there could be encouragement, where it's like, well, this was hard, but this was easy. And so just naming that these are all skills that are in process, they're all skills that can be practiced. If overall it felt like, man, there wasn't one that I was like, yeah, totally. Like we started this with our school verse, we just know and believe that all kids are created as unique image bearers, and even if all of these are low for your child, they have so many gifts. And it's okay if executive functioning isn't one of them. And it's great that you're here if that's the case. And if it is a gifting for them, that's great. And maybe they can help their siblings or you or their friends. So just wanting to name that, and thank you for being here and for acknowledging that, yeah, this could be encouraging, this could be discouraging, it could be neutral, negative, but thank you for taking time to really think about how your child operates in the classroom, at home, and in so many different realms. Any questions? I think I saw a hand. Yes.
Particularly for the questions for children, is there any value, or I guess the flip side, any harm with asking them these questions to see what their own thoughts are?
No. Yeah, no as in no harm at all. Especially, you might need to rephrase some of these things for the younger kids, but this is something that, especially as kids get older, these are skills that they can be aware of. And I've like worked with students 5th and 6th, even 4th, with the actual terms, like last called, response inhibition, and then you explain it and have a visual, but knowledge is power, like explaining more. I think the earlier that you can know some of the ways that you're wired and some of your giftings and some of the ways that you might need extra support, and you can name it and advocate. Also usually tell parents as their kids are in 5th and 6th grade, like our real goal is that their kids can go on and know who they are as learners, and then be able to advocate for themselves in whatever setting they are next year in 7th grade. Like that's the real goal. And so having your kids take this could be a real benefit to them in that process. I was also wondering if you're gonna say having, like, looking at this with their teacher too, if you're curious about, like, if you weren't sure about some of the school questions, or if you're wondering if there's a disconnect between what's shared at home versus what happens at school. That is in one of our final slides, one of the suggestions for partnering with your child's teacher is to talk about this at conferences, send them the questionnaire. I can send it to them just to continue the conversation about specific goals with these skills. So we're gonna move a little bit into what it looks like sometimes when a child struggles. So sometimes these look like behavior or motivation issues, but often they're rooted in their air traffic control. Like there's so much going on. And I mean, technology doesn't help that, like the pandemic and being home didn't help that. And so our kids have a lot on their plates and on their minds. So I gave some like common, I think, I don't wanna say complaints, but struggles that we hear. And then each slide, there will be one of these of breaking down like some strategies for you at home to help if this is a struggle. And I printed these slides and they're on the table. So if you wanna take some of these tips home, you can. But we often have struggles with like backpack, binder, locker. If you're in the summit, can't find anything. That could be at home too. Like, I don't know where this went. I don't know where that went. Always late, which could feel different if you're like the parent, maybe you're still getting them there on time, but is getting them out the door a real challenge? Or do they know soccer was at 6:15, but they're still not ready at 6 o'clock? That's tied kind of to always running out of time on assignments. Needs frequent prompting to get going, so that can sometimes appear as a child being unmotivated, but oftentimes they're really overwhelmed, like how do I even break the ice? And then giving up easily or avoiding challenging work. Yeah, that's a struggle for some kids with executive functioning challenges, but also I just wanna say, it's like one of my pet peeves when like someone says like, well, they just don't wanna do the work, or like they just gave up. It's like there's so much more at play there, and there are so many steps we can take to help kids get their work done. So first one, can't find anything. A real help, which when I did a workshop, was actually the suggestion of like visual cues of the end goal. So like literally take a picture, work with your kid, set up their backpack, say we're gonna take a picture of what your backpack should look like. What folders go in it, what goes where. Do it with them, take a picture of it, print it, and hang it next to wherever their backpack should be so that they actually have a visual cue. And that could be for anything. If you want their room, if cleaning their room is a goal, like let's clean your room together. Let's see kind of what the standard is and have a visual cue for that. Designated homes for things, so if they're losing a certain thing a lot, like is there a specific place where that should always be? And then this is the connection to school, like ask your child's teacher about what at school is the organizational system. Is there one? There should be. Is it a binder? Is it multiple folders? Are they color coded? It's not just a free for all. Like I can attest that that was part of the PD for the teachers last year. Was like there should be systems in place that you can communicate so that when work goes home, you can be like, oh yeah, that's your science folder, or oh yeah, that's your Friday folder. And then periodic backpack cleanups. Dump it out, throw out the old food, like take out, I don't know, the random like shirt that got crumpled at the bottom from the field trip. But just even modeling that with your child of like, and I have to do this with like my backpack, my purse, and I think continuing to model that for your kids too, of like, well, it's time for me to clean the car. Like, come with me to clean the car. So those are some organizational tips. This sense of time, I mentioned this at the beginning, but like making time visible. So adults, we use phrases like this all the time. 5 minutes until we leave, like you yell at the stairs. You have 20 minutes to clean your room, or like, this can be really obscure if kids, like we have to teach them how to build a sense of time. So two of my favorite things, this is called the time timer. But like you set it, and then the red is the time that you have, and the kid actually watches it. Like, where do you go away? Amazon.
Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
And it's called a what?
Time timer.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can set that for whatever task it is, and then they can see the time going away. And there is like a buzz at the end, but you can turn it off if that's like a startle, because I hate that sound. The sand timer, I think, is really only helpful if it's labeled by how much time it is. Because it's like, if you just have a sand timer, and or your kid might just end up staring at the sand. But if you think that this might be, it can look really soothing. But if you think that this might be helpful, like different colors and something tactile for them, they can also set this timer. Also, a lot in how we narrate life. So talk regularly about how long it takes you to get places. Like, because just, it's in the air we breathe, we kind of, maybe you know, maybe you don't if time management was not one of your strengths. But like, I know how long it takes me to get to work. And I can say that, or to get to drop my kid off at school and say, it takes about 5 minutes in the car, or 10 minutes, so we're gonna get in the car and leave. Estimate time and even turn it into a, wow, game. How long do you think it'll take me to unload the dishwasher, and then time it? Just like small things of like, let's build a sense of time. Start with the smaller time increments first, because like the longer you get, the harder it is to like know if an hour passed. I mean like, so small things that you could just include in your routine and narrate that would help build a sense of time in kids. Difficulty getting started, so breaking the ice. So lower what's called the starting barrier. Like if it's homework time and homework might take 20 minutes and it's like, I don't want to do it, I can't do it, we can start with just 5 minutes, like, or even less than that. But like, let's just start with 5 minutes, set a timer, and once you're started, hopefully the momentum carries the child forward. If not, take a break and then do 5 more minutes. Break down the overwhelming tasks. So if the instruction is like, get ready for school, and then 10 minutes later your kid's not ready for school, they might need more specific, even those picture cues with steps, like shoes, lunchbox, backpack, sit on the couch when you're ready. Whatever your routine is at home. Giving pre-warnings, and using time, like the time timer, or making it visible, because I think just saying 5 minutes until we leave or 5 minutes until homework can be hard. Pair a non-preferred task with something fun. So if it's a chore, like let's fold laundry while we listen to music. And then starter phrases, one step at a time, or I'll start with one problem. So I think, just expecting a child to be able to sit down, especially someone who might struggle in school or in one realm of life, to like do something independently can be really overwhelming and hard. So help them start. And you might have to help them start every time for a year, and then one day they might just do it, and it will be awesome. This is the like gives up easily, maybe avoids challenging work. The metacognition of trouble explaining their thinking or reflecting. So that can be in school. I feel like a lot of times now a shift in curriculum has been like explaining your thinking in math, which kids are like, what, I have to write in math? Or at home, or whatever it is when you're reflecting. So these are all kind of broken down by grade levels, but they're tied to persistence, flexibility, and metacognition. So again, so much of this is narrating as you go, or as they go. This is tricky, but I'll try again. You kept trying even when it was hard. Like maybe we didn't even get the homework done, but I'm so glad you did 5 minutes. That was more than yesterday. Chunk your work, doing problems, taking a break. The yet language is growth mindset stuff. Like you don't know it yet, but you're learning. And that can be really hard. And I think it's really important as adults to think of ways you can model that to your kids. Because sometimes it might seem like we are the adults and we should know more than our kids, but we are still learning too. So to say like, yeah, actually I don't know how to do that, or your dad's way better at that than me. Like there's a lot of ways that you can make that casual and hopefully normalize to them, like, oh, they're growing too, it's okay to not know how to do something. Normalizing mistakes, building stamina, and then as we get older, grades 5 and 6 and beyond, like coaching self-talk, having the goals, like I mentioned. It could be an extracurricular goal, a school goal, a friend goal, whatever it is, learning how to do something together. And then that metacognition of debriefing after tasks, like how did it go? And trying to ask specific questions, not necessarily how did it go, but like a specific question about whatever their goal was or their struggle was. So those are some tips there. Response inhibition, which I put the pause sign because that's like the pause thinking. So this is actually where a lot of games come into play. So like, you don't have to leave tonight and think like, wow, I gotta go make a planner and a goal sheet for my kid. Like, I just gotta go buy Jenga or Operation. Or we can play red light, green light when they're walking to the car to go to school tomorrow. And that can be a way that you're building your kids' executive functioning skills. Simon says freeze dance, modeling your own self-control. I really want a cookie now, but like your kid, you know, my kid tonight, like, I want a cake for dinner. Like, I do too, but like, maybe after dinner. acknowledging that it can be hard to have the response inhibition too, like, that sounds good to me too, but we gotta wait a little bit. As kids get older, role-playing tricky situations, like talking through things that might happen. What could you do if you really want to share but someone else is talking, like you wanted to share it at school, but someone was taking a turn. There's practicing breathing and like noticing activities to like give your kids some grounding breathing activities, know how to take some deep breaths. What is a deep breath? What does it feel like? And have they seen you like have to take a deep breath? That's a really good thing. If they've seen you take a deep breath. My kids don't always see me take deep breaths, but like the more that they do, the more they will, and they will see that that's a good thing. And then grades 5 and 6, jotting things on sticky notes if you want to share, more of like the list making, things like that, and then practicing real life scenarios. I could also add to this to the younger grades, like some of them were like stuffed animal puppet stuff. Like I wish that everybody still watched Mr. Rogers. And maybe your kids do, I hope so, I don't know. But even just having, like, if you know something happened at school and it was hard and they have a favorite stuffed animal and you talk to them, to the stuffed animal, like the difference that it makes is crazy. So that could be a strategy too if you want to talk through a difficult situation, whether it was at school or at home. You might get more information from the tiger than from your kid. And then home and school partnership, these are some tips of ways that we can partner with you guys. I think each grade level does it differently, whether it's a planner or a weekly sheet, but like, do you know what that is at your kid's grade level? Do you know what the expectation is? And then encourage your child to add their extracurricular activities to their planner, because that's building that life skill of if I know I have soccer Wednesday and my math homework's always due Thursday, but I get it Monday, maybe I do it Monday, Tuesday, and I don't wait Wednesday night. So we want to help them zoom out too and know like school is not everything, you have so much else going on. You could talk about the questionnaire with your child's teacher or your child, could be really enlightening. Again, seek to understand homework routines if that's applicable to you. I know we have younger families in the room, but if there's a homework routine, what is that? Do you know if it's like always due on certain days and how can you plan accordingly? If filling out the questionnaire was difficult, send it to your child's teacher, talk to us. And then if you're doing things at home that are really helping, like a timer helps, or you've set a goal, even an outside of school goal, something that your child is really passionate about that they're working towards, share that with us. So like we can celebrate and help in building those goals, goal-directed persistence, check in with them, and have that personal relationship and that trust so that like we're all on the same team. And again too, similar language, like if there's a phrase you've used at home of how you break the ice or how you get started or what to do when there's a challenge, we want to use the same language as you guys. Or if something works at school for us, we want to reach out and say, hey, we noticed sometimes science is a struggle, but today this worked. You might want to try that at home if there's resistance to homework tonight. So these are some ideas. There's a lot more. That might be specific to like your grade level or your child or their needs or their strengths, but just somewhere to start. Also want to say that there's a lot, in a good way, a lot of research out there and a lot of resources out there. Like a pretty quick Google of like executive functioning in third grader, like could get you a lot of articles, blog posts. So my goal tonight was not to be like the expert and know everything about every kid, but more the curator of like, here are some strategies, some tips, here's what it is, and hopefully a resource moving forward if you have questions or want to talk about certain things for each of your children, if you have multiple ones. So there are some resources. When we leave, I have a list of like recommended books, podcasts, websites. There is a local program that WashU does that is apparently amazing. I haven't personally been to it, but the WashU OT grad students run both summer programs and then like year-long programs for building executive functioning skills for kids. They have ones that's specifically like just executive functioning skills, and then one that's for if your child has ADHD and it needs help with executive functioning. And that's on that handout too, like where to find that information. And they do, it seems like they make it fun. So it comes highly recommended. And then we can get you extra questionnaires. There's Peg Dawson's book, and the majority of tonight's research and presentation is from Peg Dawson from Harvard's website, and then from Sarah Ward, who does a lot of the clock stuff. Her stuff is called 360 Thinking, and there's even more resources, which her website is there. If you're focusing on the time aspect, she has a lot of great resources on the time piece, which 360 Thinking. Yeah, so if you Google that, she'll come up. And she has like blog posts, she runs workshops and webinars, lots of things, lots of next steps if you would like to take them. Okay, that's all I have. Questions? Yeah. Yes, definitely time for questions. Yes.
Just a few reflections. First of all, thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
Second of all, it feels aspirational, which I think is good in your goals.
Mm-hmm.
Third, I think it helps build compassion for our kids, seeing where we lack and where they may have struggles too. And then fourth, a verse of encouragement that came to mind as God works in us. It says, Paul wrote, "Not that I've already obtained this, but I press on to take hold of that for which Christ Jesus took hold of me." So remembering that we're all in development and that God has a goal, an end goal for all of us, and He's working in us to allow us to achieve that. So I think that's
Amen. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? It does feel very aspirational. It can feel overwhelming, but one step at a time. Yeah. Yes, Sarah.
So we have a sixth grader, and I think we work a lot with the summit. And so one of the things we talk about like in admissions is how we want to equip our kids that when they leave here, they're ready for secondary school.
Mhm.
I know we have a lot of younger parents, but like as our kids go through our program, like what would you say are like 3 of the really big things that you want our kids to have in terms of executive functioning skills to be successful in secondary school?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think in the summit, because now there's like 4 teachers and it's departmentalized, innately does a good job of this, but being able to keep track of different classes and schedules, because that's gonna be how secondary school will be. You'll have a lot of different teachers. So just having them be accustomed to that, and also accustomed in terms of you might have homework from 4 subjects or a test to keep track of across the subjects. I think that's really important. Doing homework as like some schools don't give homework, some schools do give homework, some parents want homework to see what it's like, some parents don't want homework, but your kid will have homework 7th through 12th grade through college. So being able to do homework at home and turn it in on time is like, if you can do that by the end of 6th grade, in some of your subjects, that's great, and you can keep working on that. Like so many of the secondary schools that our kids typically attend, all of them have a 7th grade like life skills or study hall class and a homeroom class. So it's not like you have to be totally independent by then. But some feedback that I have heard is like the workload really does increase. So if the workload here is a struggle, like know that it's a process, and this is like the safe place to fail forward. Like this is where we want it to happen, and where we've known your kids for 8 years for some of them. And so this is the place to, in 5th and 6th grade, maybe release some of the reins and see what happens, and then need to course correct. So homework, keeping track of all the different materials, and then I'll have to think about a third one. But I think those are some of the 2 like bigger kind of like, not shocks, but just like students usually feel the big difference when they go to a bigger school with different teachers and a workload increase. Maybe more from the like heart aspect, some of the response inhibition, like, and impulse control stuff, like thinking before they speak, and that's really comes back to our pillars of like love of God, passion, zeal to serve. Thinking, I think as Christians we have a unique insight on that too, of like why we know the power of our words and how they can really build up or break down. So I think as a human that would be great, and a lot of our students are really have strong character in that way, and a strong spiritual foundation that will make them distinct from a child who didn't come from a Christian school. Yes.
Is it common to see regressions in executive function?
That's a good question. I think yes. And I wonder, with the regression, like, do you mean from grade level, like from maybe pre-K to kindergarten, or they used to do this and now it's hard?
I guess I'm thinking of when you said it can take up to a year sometimes, like
Sure.
in executive
So as they're going and learning, is it normal to also regress as they're
Yeah.
experiencing things?
Yeah, so this is one of my like least favorite things about life, but like progress isn't linear. And so like I've always wanted to be like, well, we're doing it, and then like we're not doing it, and then we're doing it. And so remembering that, like, I think when it was just like the guy pushing the rock up the mountain, but it should really be like up and down like so many times. Yeah, so in terms of, if that's what you're thinking of a regression, like yes, there will be 2 steps forward and 1 step back, or another realm of life that like gets more stressful for your child, and then that makes it harder. Again, like air traffic control, like now there's less attention here because all my attention is here. And so I think as our kids are developing, especially in elementary school, and learning, there's so much that goes on in their brains and hearts. And so when it might be that the focus was on this executive functioning skill airplane, and then it just shifts for a little bit, and then it can come back. But you can always keep learning the skills and practicing. Yeah. Yes.
The only thing I was gonna say was, thank you for also giving it to the parents, and I guess my biggest encouragement to all of us as parents is that we need to try our best to be well, and know our strengths. Like, I'm not a morning person, but if you guys all wanna go out after this, let's do it! So what I learned is I used to get up when my kids got up, and I'm not happy about it, and so there was a lot of fast pace, and we're running around, and everybody's mad, and so I learned that I had to actually pivot and get up way earlier, and it has changed the mornings, right? Like, and then I also know in the evening I can go from 100% to it is time for bed, tea, pajamas, good night. Yes. That is not how that works, and so I've had to back down some of the fun and allow a lot more time for the transition of bedtime, and so that has been like these things is really, if I'm well, they will do well.
Yeah.
I mean, then
Yeah.
I just want to encourage all of us as we start to learn about ourselves too. Like, we have the beauty of stewarding these little ones, and the Lord gifted these guys to us, and so, I mean, self-care and being wise, and then getting the rest at another time or whatever. You know, like, again, it's also a really hard season. Great job, everybody. This is a hard season, but I think when we can do this well for ourselves, we really help them.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it can be an argument. And also, we all are products of what we saw from our parents, and so this is all new for us too.
Yeah.
None of this was taught to our parents.
Yeah.
And they did the best they could. But they also yelled a lot.
Well, and like, I think too, you're getting at the beauty of like, there can be beauty in the vulnerability of being a parent and being vulnerable with your kids, talking about your weaknesses, or like, with the transitions that can be so hard. Like, you know what, like, I'm really rushing bedtime right now. Like, let me take a step back. And I even learned that early on in teaching of like, I thought I had to go in and be like the person with all the answers, and like you don't, and it was like, there's so much more ground covered and trust gained when you are vulnerable. And you're like, actually that one, that's a typo, or like, I didn't think that through, or that question isn't worded, the way that you repeated that back to me, you're right, there could be 2 answers there. I see how you're thinking. Like, you are still the authority in their lives, but I think knowing that our identity is in Christ, like there can be much more grace and like levity there to when things are hard for us, hopefully. Yeah.
I was just gonna ask kind of along the same lines as that Lorena asked, if there is like so I know a lot of it is trial and error and figuring out what works for your kid. Is there like a, give it 6 weeks, if that doesn't build the habit, shift gears? Like, is there kind of a standard rule of thumb for like, okay, we've been practicing this or trying different strategies, and it's just not working, or we need some more tools? Like, what do you kind of use in your brain as an educator for like a trial period?
We usually use like the 6 to 8 week trial period.
Yeah.
Just of the, like with the thought of like what it takes to build a habit, and and also thinking and like always reassessing, like was the goal, if the goal wasn't reached at the end of the 6 to 8 weeks, like definitely looking at the steps that you took, but also maybe even reevaluating the goal. Like, did I think we could get to here, and actually the first step is maybe something a little smaller, like breaking it down to ultimately lead up to the goal. Could be, if there's not necessarily success by the end, like, could there be a smaller piece that we get to by the next 6 weeks to get us there? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I realized looking at this broken down by age, I expect my 5 and 6 year olds to do a lot of the same things that I expect our 5th grader to do, executive functioning wise, just because like our family's operating at this speed. Like I need y'all to go, you know, and so I think it was really humbling for me to be like, oh wow, that's not an expectation for a 5-year-old. Even though I have this idea that it is, you know, it was kind of liberating in that way.
Yeah. Good. Okay, well, I'll pray to close us, and then I'm gonna enjoy the rest of your night, and we'll be around for a little longer if you have other questions. Lord, thank you so much for tonight. Thank you for each and every parent in this room, and for all the children that they represent. Thank you for bringing them to Central. Thank you for bringing them here tonight, that they gave up a fall night. Lord, fall, we know, can be so busy, and thank you that they're here. We thank you for their partnership. We pray for our students, for the kids. We ask that this would be a place where they feel safe and known and loved, and where they feel celebrated in their giftings, and where they feel steady enough to take steps towards growth in areas of weakness. We pray for their teachers, that you would give them insight and wisdom, and to really know their students, to know them more than just as a student, but as a child of God, and as a sweet soul who we get to steward for a year or two, whatever the time frame is. Lord, we thank you for the time that we get with these students. I thank you for the trust that the parents give to us. Lord, how much time kids spend at school. We thank you and praise you for Central, for the families that are here, and for the opportunity to serve these kids and these families. We pray as tonight, it's kind of a big overview, and there's lots of lofty goals, and there may be some encouragement, there may be some discouragement, there may be thoughts in parents' minds of what to do next, and just thoughts of, I don't know what to do next. Lord, I pray that you would draw near, that you would give community and partnership to these parents and families, and ask that it could be through us. Thank you for this night, for the coming season of fall, and I pray for the rest of this school week that you would help our kids to have fun, to play, to learn, to make deep friendships and lifelong connections here at Central. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so